Before we proceed, Monica, do you want to share any questions that Deloitte has asked you in the first round of interview? Anything specific?
Specifically, nothing much. Like all are like we have covered almost all topics. So specifically, like they just asked me like whether I have worked on any preparing any BRD documents and what are the like what you will include in a BRD document.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
the
anyway,
only.
that we have already covered, so I think that should be
Yeah.
right here. So today we'll look at the uh, interview questions, and then also so once we're done with the interview questions, right, we'll look at the JIRA flow. Okay, so that's something people may ask you in the interviews as well. The most common question that you can expect, like almost in all the interviews, is can you take an example or a sample requirement or a project that you worked on and explain end to end of it? Okay, so that's something which we discussed in the first session, right, where we have gone through the 20 different activities that a business analyst does. So you need to cover all of them in your explanation. So probably you should take like 5 to 10 minutes in explaining that whole process. Okay. So any questions on that? Because that's a short interview question that people will expect you to know.
Yeah, Ravi, can we make it one more time? I mean, it's a kind of a rehearsal kind of.
Yeah, somebody, maybe I'll display it on the screen. Somebody can go through it, because so if we have to repeat, right, so we might as well go through the same session. Yeah, so I've shared the recording, right? Maybe that would be useful, but I can open the anyone who has gone through the first session, anyone who has revised the first session, right? If you can go through it once. Opening everything. Okay, I'm quickly sharing my screen. Maybe we can spend 5 minutes on this. Anyone? So it will be a good opportunity for you. It will be like a practice, interview practice for you. Anyone? Any volunteer?
Hello.
Yeah, Venkatesh. Yeah.
See, you need. Okay.
It's okay. So don't worry. Even if you make mistakes, right? That's fine. So we can cover any gaps.
Okay. For any, actually, we'll do this one if there is any upgradation of the software. So there are maybe different reasons like for expansion of business, new or onboarding new product or venturing into new areas or adding any new features like that. So or there might be a reason for enhancing the application to meet a new regulatory requirements. So a business case will be prepared. So it's here in business case we list out the different reasons, what are the opportunities and risk, and what is the additional expenditure and benefit, and what are the opportunity costs if we don't upgrade, and what is the approximate efforts. So there are different measurements like a t-shirt, for example, a t-shirt estimate. So we'll prepare these reasons, and once a business case get approved, we will prepare the HLSA, which is called a high level security assessment. Here with the help of solution with the help of solution architect, we'll prepare the HLSA. So this shows us connecting. This shows which connects different upstreams and downstreams. Thereafter, we'll go to stakeholder analysis. We need to know what are the different type of stakeholders involving, what are their influences and what are the interests, and how we need to handle them and complete the matrix. So we also should know how we need to involve these stakeholders, and thereafter we move to the once thereafter we need to move requirement gathering. uh, so gathering the requirement with the uh, by scheduling a meeting with the business users. So we write here user stories, and also the we write acceptance criteria. So if it is a if it's a waterfall, we write BRD. If it is a Scrum, we write user stories. So if there are a lot of unknowns, so we need to take over brainstorm sessions, interviews, and questions. So we need to convert the requirement to functional specific document. Thereafter, signing off the requirement. Sorry. Thereafter, signing off requirement, we need to hand over to the development team. Here, the development, installation, configuration. Thereafter, they do unit testing,
Um,
and
Venkatesh,
which is yeah.
so actually, I'm very impressed. Mind blowing. You are like amazing. How many times did you go through the recording?
It's 3 times.
Oh God, I think you deserve a big round of applause. Actually, everyone should clap for Venkatesh. Actually, amazing. Actually, you have covered every single thing. If you explain the same way in the interview, right? I'm sure you will easily get through any interview. That's really good. You have covered every small thing, and the way you're explaining also, it's very convincing. That's amazing. And anyone else who wants to take off from here?
Yeah, I'll take it up.
Yeah.
So from development, we will be kind of putting it across with kinds of installation and creating different environments that we have, so that we can work on start the development on those environment. We will then go ahead with unit testing. Once that is done, so the developer will be kind of doing a unit testing of that particular software or product. And once that is done, the deployment will be done for the SIT, where the developers will be working on it. So the system interaction testing, right?
System integration testing.
Integration testing. Yeah, system integration testing will be done. It can be done with the along with the QA and the BA. So both we were kind of in interaction with all. It has to be done. Then we can.
Anshuman, sorry to interrupt the flow. So I'm just giving you a real-time interview feel. So people may interrupt as well when you're explaining something. So you said system integration test would be done, right? So why would a BA do that? Normally a QA does that, right? Why would you do SIT?
So sometimes what happens is BA being a having a knowledge of all the process, and maybe the QA may not be into that particular system. So kind of BA pitches in for the to go ahead with that particular step to kind of do that testing.
Yeah, so that's a good point. One thing to remember, right? Always use the use I when you're explaining. Okay, so I have good knowledge, and don't use, because you are the BA, right? So whenever
Okay.
you are referring, don't refer to the third person as a BA. So you refer yourself as a BA. Okay, so that's one important thing. And the other answer you can give when somebody asks you that question, right? You can say that, okay, so we follow Agile and Scrum. In Scrum, there is no concept of a BA or a QA or a developer. It is expected that a BA has T-shaped skills. T-shaped skill is nothing but you are expert in one area, but you can also do manage other area as well. So I'm good at business analysis, but I can also do QA testing as well because I have a good understanding of the requirement, etc. So then you can give the answer that you've given.
Okay. So that is called T-shaped skill, right?
Yeah, so T-shaped skill is nothing but, so T-shaped skill is very highly encouraged in Scrum. For example, if you have two resources, okay, so one of the resources is like really an expert in a skill, but he cannot do anything else, right? And you have a second resource who's good at one skill, but he can also manage another skill. The second person is given a lot of importance in Scrum than the first person. So that's the T-shaped resource.
Kind of BA is expected to have a T-shaped skill. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so where I was SIT QAB. Okay, so after that, I go ahead with the UAT testing, and then the demo testing. I suppose demo testing. We go ahead with the demo testing. Okay. Can you show me that screen?
Have removed the screen, okay, because in interview you can't see the screen, right? Okay, fine. Yeah,
Let me first try it.
yeah, okay.
So yeah, then we will be going ahead with the demo and the related test results. We will be going ahead with the team for sign up. So once that is done, I have to go ahead with the different application training that I need to give to the different users, and then the run book means kind of ensuring that the developers have a means the developers work on that run book. Kind of an update is given to.
Mhm.
After that, it is go and go no process. Okay, so the go no process is then kind of this. What is that? Go no.
Okay, anyone wants to pick up from here?
Yeah. So no and it's a a meeting given by a BA. It's a holistic view. He'll give a holistic view regarding the status of UAT and SIT and also various statistics. And if it is go, then it is deployed by development team, and wherein we do the TVT, BVT, that is technical verified technique, and also business verified technique. And then next it will be deployed in a production environment wherein it is done by a development team. And then next the software is deployed in the production by the end user, which is like during non-working day, because it is done in a beta version, wherein if it is done on the non-working day, even if we find some bugs, we can fix it, like going back to the stage of development. And if there is no bug and all, then next we do the TVT and BVT testing. If there's no issue, then the production monitoring is done by the development team, wherein they test no they basically check the product for the bug again, I think. And then next post implementation reviews done by the BA team. BA team does that, and also the next big improvement and track the business values done by the BA team. Yeah,
Okay, that's good actually. Looks like you guys got a good hold of the whole process now. Okay, so always remember using so referring yourself as business analyst, Okay, so that's one thing. Then TVT and BVT. TVT is technical verification testing. Okay, BVT is business verification testing. So TVT is performed by the production support team. Okay, and BVT is performed by the business users. But as BAs, we will plan and coordinate with all of them for the testing. Okay, before the software is deployed in production, so we deploy it in a production-like environment, so which has all the configuration and settings, everything similar to production. So we do a mock drill here on staging. So production-like environment is called staging. Then we deploy it in production. We do the TVT, BVT. Then production monitoring is done by the production support team. Okay, so the development team is out of the picture once it's deployed, right? Production monitoring is done by them. They reach out to us if there are any issues. Any issues, we go back to the same cycle. Okay, so we don't do the business case again, but we start the development, requirement gathering, and all of that again. Okay, then PIR and the next business. Okay, so I think we are fairly comfortable with this. So that's a good sign. Good work. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so the next thing that you can expect is, okay, you said you gather requirements, right? What techniques do you use to gather requirements?
So like we have various techniques, like with stakeholders we can have one-on-one if it's a like small group, or we can send a questionnaire to the with the stakeholders to collect information. We can also do a brainstorming session, focus group sessions. Yeah, these are few techniques.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else wants to give a go? Because this is again very commonly asked question, because the elicitation or requirement gathering, right, is kind of bread and butter. You should be very comfortable answering this question. Pooja, you want to try?
The elicitation techniques, I haven't gone through that video yet.
Okay. Vijay, you want to try?
Yeah, sure. I can add a couple points. So like during the requirement gathering technique, we can just ask their current process, how they are, that's working, and where are the pain area that we have to
No,
address.
so you're not getting my question. So what techniques did you use as a business analyst during elicitation? And can you explain what techniques you used in which scenarios?
I'm sorry, Ravi, I could not go
So my
through.
question is, so what techniques did you use to elicit requirements as a business analyst, and when did you use what technique?
I have to, check once again.
So Ravi, we can do stakeholder analysis, brainstorming, interviews, focus groups, observation. I think these are few I remember. Prototyping also, um, to gather the requirements, seek attention of different users, etc. Is this correct, Ravi?
Okay, it's I mean correct, but it's not sufficient for you to clear the interview.
Okay.
Anyone wants to try?
Like maybe we can explain like which scenario and which technique we'll be using. So
Yeah.
let's say if it's a small group, like 2-3 other stakeholders we are interacting with, we can go with the interview session, like one-on-one interview we can do. So if the group is huge, then we can conduct group interviews, and also we can do brainstorming session. So in like basically in these sessions, like we will leave it to them, and we will just let them speak, and we will make a note of all the whatever they are speaking. And then we can after these sessions, like business analyst can work on filtering the requirements. So like that, each technique we can elaborate little more, Ravi.
Yeah, correct.
And also we use the 5 why technique, wherein you ask the audience like what the why, what, and how,
Yeah.
where, and when of it, so that you get to the root problem of the I mean, like whatever they're asking for the requirements. You exactly get to know the requirement, if it is true they're having the problem or not, or it's just their assumption. So that is how you find out, like by using the 5 whys. And also we do the fishbone technique. We use the fishbone diagram technique, wherein you can easily get to know uh, the causes of the, like, the sub causes, uh, which is causing the problem, and which is needed for the requirement to be solved.
Yeah.
Is there any? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good actually. So probably I'll summarize what everyone said for the benefit of everyone. Okay, so I've used various techniques as a business analyst in my experience. Normally, when I start off a project and I have very little knowledge on the project, right, I don't prefer to get into interviews or workshops directly. Instead, I send a questionnaire to the users. I go before sending a questionnaire, so I go through different documents and artifacts which are readily available with the project. And then I prepare a questionnaire on what I'm expecting, so that I get the background of the project. So I send out the questionnaire to all the stakeholders, um, um, stakeholders which I've derived based on my stakeholder analysis. That's something that I do as soon as I join a project. So I create a list of all the stakeholders, then plot them into the stakeholder influence interest matrix. So I'll send this questionnaire to all the stakeholders, and I'll go through their responses. So that gives me a good understanding or overview of the project. Then I kick off an initial introduction session with all those stakeholders having that background of the project. Normally, in my experience, I've noticed people covering various concepts, and then it's very difficult to connect all the dots. So I normally use mind mapping techniques to connect all the dots, and this gives me a good overview of the big picture. So once I get a good understanding and overview, I do interviews. So I talk to specific stakeholders. I do one-to-one interviews as well. Also, I use the observation techniques to understand their process. I just sit next to them and observe what they're doing on the application. That gives me a good understanding of the flow. Then once I gain this expertise on the project, I normally run through workshops, focusing on engaging all the requirements and engaging all the stakeholders to gather all the unknowns and all of that. I also, depending on the situation, so I also do a lot of brainstorming if we require inputs from various people. And if I've come across situations where the stakeholders are finite and I need to have focused discussions with them. So that's when I also run through focus group discussions. So these are some of the elicitation techniques that I've used, and I've not used all of them in one project, but it depends on the situation. So I pick and choose each of these techniques depending on the situation and the scenario, and also organization context also depends. This is when I work on new projects. Let's say if there are any problems or issues that I encounter, I normally use the 5 why technique and the fishbone analysis to drill down into the details and to identify root causes. Okay, so probably this is how you need to explain in the interview, and the interviewer would be convinced.
Sure. Ravi.
So if you notice, right, throughout the answer, I was using I. Okay, so because you need to start thinking that okay, you are the business analyst. Okay, so that's when the interviewer will get a lot of confidence. So any questions on this? Because this is a very important interview question that you'll come across. Okay, so if there are no questions, yeah, sorry.
So,
No questions,
Ravi,
Ravi.
Yeah,
Ravi, if I ask you related to that first question, we went ahead with the end-to-end, but do we need to kind of project it on the basis of an example on our own project, or directly we can put it on a common way, like we put it here in a common way? That way we can put it, or we have to take an example like we had this particular project and there we kind of did this. Kind of we have to take it
so
on a project basis.
the reason why they ask you to take any recent project or something that you worked on is because so that you can explain this flow that we have gone through, right? So you can take any example depending on the project. So I can suggest you what to use when we are doing the CV review. So you need to pick up something, or you can pick up something general like an upgrade, okay, or maybe like a new product launch or something like that, and then explain. So you can say, okay, maybe I'll take the example of an upgrade project and walk you through end to end, and the interviewer would be fine. Okay.
So
The
on
expectation is
our
that,
resume,
yeah.
yeah. So on our resume, whatever we have currently put, so on that basis we can take it up and then kind of formulate a project basis and then go ahead with it. That would be good.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so that's and the next common question is, so what challenges did you face as a business analyst? Um, so when people ask you what challenges did you face, right? A lot of times we only tell what is the challenge, but the expectation from interviewer is, okay, so this is the challenge that I faced, and this is how I overcame it, and then this is my learning, okay, that I've implemented lifelong. So can anyone think of any challenges that you face as a business analyst?
Okay, so Ravi, let me just speak about this.
Yeah.
So the first challenge is how to document the requirement that would be sufficient for the development. So sometimes we put together the requirement, but development team is not able to understand what exactly are the requirement and what users are expecting. And this is the major challenge I come across. And the second one is when we are just gathering the requirements. So so the documenting, I mean, the scope of the requirement is sometimes it's not clear to the user as well. So it's always happen like when we put together the requirement and again user come like we don't need this. They always ask. These are the challenges I come across most of the time.
Actually, okay. So three things that you need to. So the first thing, I would say maybe it's not a really good one to tell in the interview, because as business analysts we should be able to write really good requirements. Okay, so that means we are kind of shooting ourselves on the foot by saying, okay, my developer is not understanding the requirements that I write. Okay, probably not a good thing to say in the interview.
Okay.
Any?
Ravi?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can go for the timeline. Just a minute. Sorry, not just a call. I'll get back to you soon.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, Ravi, one of the challenge like I have faced is like when it comes to phase wise delivering of a product. So prioritizing on the requirements. Sometimes the users will not be clear on what requirements, like what are the requirements they want at first. So this is one of the challenge I have faced. Mostly, I will. I will have like I will discuss with them and I will use a Moscow technique. So must have, could have, would have, and like these like what are the most important thing. Like by this technique, the users will be able to prioritize what is the most important requirement that needs to be done. So this is how I will work on the challenge, Ravi.
Yeah. So that's a good way. So basically what we are doing by answering this is because we are kind of asking the interviewer to ask us the next question. Okay. So what kind of prioritization techniques are you aware of? Right. So this is one of the good answers that Monica has given, right? You can say it's the every stakeholder has different sets of requirements and everything is important, right? And it's very, and with limited capacity of the development team, we can't take or accept all the requirements, so which makes it really difficult. That's when I use my knowledge on prioritization. So I have good knowledge on various prioritization techniques, and then you explain the different prioritization techniques. Okay, so that's when we'll go through some of the techniques. Then this is one of the best ways to answer this question. The other thing is you can say something like uh, very powerful stakeholders pushing their requirements, though it is not adding any business value. So that could be one of the challenges. Or you can also say stakeholders want requirements to be converted into solution, but they don't have enough time to talk to me regarding requirements. So those are some of the scenarios that you can explain. But when you go through the techniques, right? So you need to go through different techniques. So Moscow is the basic technique: must have, should have, could have, would have, and won't have. This is when the requirements are straightforward, right? Then you can help business teams to prioritize. But if it's complex, you can say that I also use cost of delay. So it gives me the cost of delaying a specific requirement. Okay, so we did this technique, right? Scoring on 3 different parameters and then calculating the weighted shortest job first score. So you can explain these, and then you can also explain another technique which is called the $100 technique. So this is something we use when we have large number of stakeholders and large number of requirements and we want to prioritize them. So what we what we do here in $100 technique is, excuse me. So in $100 technique, we give each stakeholder fictitious money, virtual money, $100, and ask them to spend on the available requirements. Okay, so let's say if you have a requirement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and then you have some 20 stakeholders, okay, who have to prioritize these requirements. So then you give $100 to each of the stakeholders and ask them to spend on these 5 requirements. Okay, and every stakeholder will spend, will only have a maximum of $100 to spend. Okay, and when they spend their $100, after they finish spending, the requirement, you will order the requirements based on the highest value that people have spent, and then they would be the topmost requirements. Okay, so for example, if this one receives 1,000, okay, then this one receives 800, and this one receives 2,000. Okay, this one receives 600, and this one receives 300. After everyone spends it, then you clearly know that number 3 is a priority. This is something that you will use when you have large number of stakeholders, and then it is very difficult for you to convince or engage them using Moscow or cost of delay or weighted shortest job first. So that's when you use the $100 technique. Okay. So when you answer that, what are the challenges you face, right? So you are explaining the challenge, then you also explaining your knowledge on prioritization, and that is how you overcame. Okay, so this is a good way to answer that question. Okay, so cost benefit analysis is something again pretty generic. When you have minimal stakeholders, like maybe like 2 or 3, you can easily do a cost benefit analysis to convince them. So what is the cost of the first requirement or solution, cost and benefit of second solution? Okay, and then you do a comparison. When you have minimal stakeholders and really matured stakeholders, right, you do a cost benefit analysis. Okay, so that's again another important question that you can.
Ravi, sorry, I got a call. That's the reason that I wasn't able to continue. So can I continue my part, or can you move with the head thought?
Yeah. So we'll keep moving. Maybe you can just rewind this session and go through what we discussed.
Okay, just I had a thought in my mind. Can I put across that?
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I was studying is in continuation with the timeline. So we have a set of priorities, right? It's each sprint. So let's say that we've already prioritized the requirements. Suddenly client comes and insists that I want this requirement in this sprint. So that's not possible. So what I do is I speak with the product owner, see the client is insisting that this requirement has to be completed in this phase, but we've already prioritized the earlier requirements. Is this a feasible or possible way we can able to prioritize this requirement? So learning point, I'm thinking that we need to make sure the client to inform earlier itself. So this is how the process is about. And we can move it into the next sprint. If it is more priority than earlier requirements, then we can move that requirements and replace with requirements. Is that okay with the client? Then we can move forward. If it is not feasible, then.
Okay. So that's a good good scenario which you have taken. The first thing to note is always avoid using future tense. Okay, so we will do this, we need to do this. Maybe use present tense or past tense. I did this.
Okay.
Or this is something that I'm doing. Okay, maybe like present continuous tense would be better. Or a simple present is better.
Then how do I put across that one?
Okay, so if I was in your situation and somebody asked me this question, right, this is how I would answer. Okay, so I'm in the middle of a sprint, and then a key stakeholder has come up and then given me a requirement. Okay, in that case, what I do is I tell them, I talk to the product owner and I explain to the product owner that there is a new requirement that has come up. Okay, then me and my product owner will discuss and then come up with come up to a conclusion, normally where if the new requirement is not impacting the sprint goal, then we would accommodate it. Okay, if the requirement is impacting or putting the sprint goal at stake, then we would not go ahead with that requirement and we would add it to the next sprint, right? And the product owner has a final say in this. Okay, as a business analyst, we will only give input to the product owner, but a product owner will decide if the new requirement has go into the sprint, especially because it's coming in the middle of sprint. And normally a product owner accepts this new requirement if it's not impacting the sprint goal. For example, the new requirement that has come up is only taking like 30 minutes or 1 hour time, right? It's not impacting the sprint goal, correct? We will still go ahead with it. For example, it's something like you want to go from Bangalore to maybe Goa, right? Your friend comes up with a request, okay, can we stop here? You want to reach Goa by end of evening, Okay, your friend comes up with a request. Okay, can we have breakfast at this in Davangere? Okay, so can we have some Davangere benne dosa? Then it takes like 10 minutes, right? There is nothing wrong in accommodating if it makes him happy, because you will still reach Goa on time, right? By evening, 10 minutes doesn't cost you much. Similarly, in a sprint, if a new requirement comes in and it's not impacting your sprint goal, your product owner normally accepts it. Does it make sense? Is that
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
so? Always sprint goal. Okay, if it's impacting sprint goal, then don't take it. If it's not impacting, take it. And it's not up to you to decide. Product owner will decide.
Okay.
Ravi, I had a question.
Yeah.
I was asked at one of the places like just a few months back when I'd given an interview where, they didn't ask me what was the challenge that you faced, but they gave me a challenge and asked me how would I handle it. So
Okay.
the challenge that they gave me, that suppose if you have a tight deadline and the development team hasn't done the work, what will you do? How will you handle the situation? And so do we always get questions like, will they give us the option of a challenge, or they put up a challenge and ask us for a resolution? So
So generally, they will ask you what challenges you face, but they can also give you a challenge. So, for example, in this, right? So they ask you when you understand the Agile Foundation and Scrum very clearly, right? You should be able to answer any question easily, any of the challenges. So even this one where they asked you, okay, so your development team has not completed the development and you have reached the timeline. So what will you do? Correct?
yes, that was the question. I mean, you
So
have a
what?
pressure, and now the work is not done at the end of the sprint. What would you do?
So what will you? What did you answer, or what
I
did
couldn't
you?
answer because I couldn't answer that question. I just said that I'll escalate it to the respective parties, and I'll involve all of them in the meeting, and certainly we'll do a root cause analysis to find out why things didn't work. But this was all before this training. But if I have to answer it now, I would rather say we will. We'll speak to the development team to understand, are they struggling somewhere due to which they couldn't complete the work, or was it something else? We'll involve the scrum master in the process and the product owner, because obviously if we are not meeting the timeline, it increases the pressure on everyone. So we will find the root cause analysis, and we'll have a in the retro session we'll speak about it, and we'll look at the positive side and take it further as a learning, so that this is not happening ever again.
Yeah, so this is a decent answer, not a bad answer actually. The interviewer should be convinced with this answer, but I'll give you the ideal answer. Okay, so the ideal answer is this situation of stakeholder getting surprised that the development team has not delivered a project on time, right? Or maybe they are not going to meet the timelines, came as a surprise, correct? So this normally happens in Waterfall. Okay, so this used to happen when we were following Waterfall, which is why we moved to Scrum. In Scrum, what we do is we plan work for next 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks we are very transparent with how we are progressing, and we do a sprint demo to the stakeholder, right? And the stakeholder is clearly aware of what is the progress and if you are going to delay very at an early stage. Okay, so there is no question of stakeholder knowing in the last minute that we are not going to meet the timeline, because after every 2 weeks I'm organizing the sprint demo. I'm being transparent of what we are progressing and what we are going to work in the next 2 weeks, right? So there is no question of stakeholder getting surprised that we are not able to meet timelines. Okay? Um, so that's the first explanation. Second thing is, if the stakeholder is not attending the sprint demo, then it could be possible that they are surprised that we are not going to deliver it on time, right? Then we need to find out why is the stakeholder not attending the sprint demo, and what can we do to make sure they attend the sprint demo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because every 2 weeks I'm organizing sprint demo. telling you upfront, I'm being transparent that, okay, this is how I progress and this is what I'll do in the next 2 weeks. How can you come to me in the last minute and say that, okay, you're not meeting my timeline? Are you sleeping in the sprint demo, right? No, right? So this is how you can explain in the interview. I mean, you need not see what I said in the last two
No, no,
sentences,
but
but
I
yeah,
get it. Yes, 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 yes,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's a good question. I think, yeah, more or less we are good with the interview questions.
Ravi, I had a same kind of a query in one of the interviews that I kind of put it across to you in the beginning also. So it was like you have been given a project on creating a application on Android platform. Sorry, on a iOS platform first, and once that is kind of foolproof and kind of goes into production, we will go ahead with the Android version. Now, for that, we have all the feasible scenarios, good feasible scenarios, like we have enough people, enough resources, enough money, enough time, everything is kind of good. Now, on that basis, what should be your criteria of going ahead with the project? It's like starting from the beginning, they have given a project, and what should be your criteria of approaching it?
Okay, sorry, I lost track in between. So you, if I understand correctly, right, your project team, your the team has given you a set of requirements that are already feasible and asked you to work on them. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's like everything is good, good feasibility. The current requirement is like the project has to be, means that application has to be first put into, means into production in the iOS environment, that application. And then once it is means foolproof kind of goes into the market, then we will be kind of creating it in the Android platform. But what should be your first approach with all the good feasible criteria like resources, perfect number of resources, perfect amount allotted, and good number of time? Now, what should be your kind of way to go ahead with that particular project? What should be your approach?
Okay. So first of all, who did the feasibility? Who decided whether it's feasible or not?
So that is what they gave me a criteria that everything is good, means the number of people that has been allotted to that project is enough for that particular project. And the number of, that is what, it's kind of a vague kind of a scenario that has been put across, mean that the number is good, around a perfect number for handling that project as per the scenarios that we have seen. And the amount that has been put is also good, and everything is good from the scenario of a project point of view. Now, what should be your approach in such a good scenario? What should be your first approach to kind of go ahead with that project? From where you should be starting?
Okay. Actually, so when people give you these ambiguous or vague scenarios, right, a lot of times, because we don't have experience, we try to accept that vague or ambiguous scenario, and we don't ask questions. So whenever somebody is giving you this vague scenario, right, they expect you to answer some questions before to derive the answers. Okay. So if I was in that interview and somebody asked me this question, right, then I would ask them, okay, so I have a few questions before I give you the answer. So you said all the feasible requirements and all the resources are done, are actually allocated. So who decided how many resources are sufficient, and are the requirements gathered and are they already signed off? Okay, so okay, so then the answer changes depending on what they say, whether it's yes or no. So I will ask them, who are they, first of all, are the requirements gathered? Okay, so did you consider the Android platform as well when you gathered the requirements, or did you consider only iOS? Okay, Then the second thing is who decided that if the requirements are not gathered, how did you decide that the number of resources would be enough without knowing the requirements? Okay, so did you do like a t-shirt size estimate, just a rough t-shirt size estimate based on your past experience on delivering such projects? Because without estimating how many people would be required without knowing, documenting or finalizing the requirements, right? It's kind of pretty vague. Let's assume they said, okay, so we finalize the requirements. Then you would start off with explaining the requirements to the stakeholders, right? Then even before that, let's say you're developing the you're gathering requirements only for iOS, right? You need to also make sure that the requirements are also feasible and compatible with Android as well. Because what happens if you go to the market um, with that software or product for iOS, and then you realize that feature is not possible in Android? Will you give two different experiences to Android and iOS users? No, right? So that will impact. So probably you will start with redefining the requirements and making sure if there is any gap between the iOS and Android for the given set of requirements. You'll do a gap analysis to start with. Okay, then if the requirements are not gathered, right, then you will pick up requirements that are both compatible with iOS and Android, and you will start the elicitation and you will go through the whole process. So I need some more answers to exactly give you how would I approach. I would start with asking these questions in the interview.
So Ravi, if I kind of put it across, this question is kind of the other way of a normal cycle, like it's coming from the backside of that particular cycle that we follow for a normal business process. So it's like you kind of go ahead with 1, 2, 3, 4, but they are asking like you have to first, for 5 to be done, you need to know 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of the answers. So is it on the basis of the type of experience that we are showing in the past experience that we have, the total resume experience that we have? Is it on the basis of that actually these queries come? Because this
So
suppose seems
sometimes,
to
okay,
be.
so be prepared. Some of the interviewers, right? So you will also come across some losers or some haters on the call who are like frustrated in their current roles as well. So who will ask you questions just for the sake of it. Okay. So you can't choose your interviews, right? Sometimes you will come across those interviewers as well. So it's just that you should think, okay, it's just a bad day or a bad choice, and then you should keep moving. So good interviewer would give you all the background and make sure you will ask all the questions. So this scenario is pretty vague. I don't understand what exactly they are referring to unless I ask this question.
Yeah, actually, he was a sales head of that company, so he was not into business analysis. So he was the sales head. So maybe a kind of a scenario he has projected and put it across.
Yeah, correct. So there are people who will ask you, who will interview you, and they don't even know the difference between story points and mandates. Okay, so they will get confused. They will think story points is mandates, and they will confuse you. Okay, and then you will come out of the interview thinking, oh, maybe he was right. Okay, story points are mandates. Okay, so you will come across like all types of interviewers, but again, most of them are good.
Sometimes Lux also makes the scenario different.
Which one? Logs?
That is what sometimes luck also makes the scenario different.
Correct. Yeah. The key is so when they ask you questions that you know, right, you should be able to explain like thoroughly. Then your chances of clearing interviews would be higher. Okay, so probably just revise these questions and answers that we discussed, and if you have any more questions, just feel free to talk to me and we can go through it a bit more if you have any questions. So we have the WhatsApp group as well, right? So just put in the questions there as and when you go through the interview, so we can discuss more. Okay, so we have to go through the JIRA as well. Probably I'll start off with a basic introduction, which we can cover in the tomorrow's session. We can continue in tomorrow's session. Just give me a second. I'm opening the screen. Okay, I'm just giving you a background, I mean, a holistic picture. Some of them you don't need to know as a business analyst. Okay, so don't get confused. Okay, what is all of this? And then why should I know this? I'm just giving you so that you understand the big picture. Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, Ravi.
Okay. So the first thing, not you that, but if you join as a Scrum Master, right? So you go and create a new project on your board. Okay, 1 second. I think I have some issue with this. Just give me a second. Open. So you go and create a project, not you, the Scrum Master will create a project. Okay. Then he can create a Scrum board or a Kanban board. As BA, so we work in Scrum board. So if you're working in production support, you normally use Kanban. Then, so this is something you don't need to know. So the first thing as a business analyst, right, we start creating issue. So issue is something, this is where we start creating the user stories or tasks or bugs or all of that. Okay. There are various issue types that we create. And these are the different fields that you will update. Okay, so an issue type could be a user story, or it could be a production defect, or it could be a task. Okay, so task is something like, okay, get access to Confluence. Okay, so that could be a task. Okay, or maybe set up the workshop with business users, right? Or go through the Confluence. Okay, update the documentation. Something like that would be part of would be created as a task. Okay. Then any actual requirement from an end user perspective, you create it as a user story, right? The other thing is, have you guys heard of epics anytime?
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah, Ravi,
Yes,
I
Ravi.
heard of
Epic,
it.
right?
Yes, Ravi.
Okay, so
High level users.
okay, so epic is like a very high level requirement or an initiative or a project, and you can have multiple user stories under one epic. Okay, so for example, you can have an epic where I want customers to transfer payments using IMPS. Okay, that could be an epic, but you can have multiple stories in that, right? So one story could be the customer should be able to log in. Okay, so the customer should be able to view his dashboard. The customer should be able to transfer. The customer should be able to verify the payment. Okay, all of that. So this high level requirement will have user stories under it. And for each of the user stories, you can create tasks that you want to deliver. Okay, so maybe I'll pause for a bit. Is it clear, the concept of epic? Epic is nothing but a collection of user stories. You can see it as a collection of user stories related to a common feature.
Yeah, it's clear, Ravi.
Okay.
Then there is no difference between user story and epic. Ravi,
So you
I mean,
can't
why do
have
you have
you
to do
can't
that?
have no you can't have an epic under a user story, but you can have a user story, multiple user stories under an epic.
So I think Ravi, the epic is a I mean larger volume of a requirement that we split into different user stories.
Yeah, correct. We split into multiple stories here.
So I can say that just the epic is the transfer amount. So user story can be written as, okay, that user wants to transfer amount via IMPS. And is that next?
IMPS, NEFT, RTGS. So you will split it into stories. Split the
Okay.
epic into stories. So one epic can have multiple stories. One story cannot have epics. So here you are creating a task or a story, right? Then you can link an epic to that. Okay, so that's how you will group stories under an epic.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you're creating an issue, right? So in JIRA, so we call this as an issue, and you create a story or anything. So you have different fields that you need to fill in. Okay. So what is the summary? What is the epic link? You put in the description of it. Then you can attach anything. You can assign it to the BA or developer or tester or any of that. Component is just a label or a tag to identify that story uniquely. And you can put description, you can put due date, the link it to an epic. You can put labels also to identify the story differently. You can, this is how we link it to a sprint. Okay, so when you're linking it to a sprint, right, that means you're moving it from product backlog to the sprint backlog. Remember, we have product backlog, which has all the requirements, right, for the product. But in the sprint, we only do for the next 2 weeks, right? So when you add a sprint number to a specific user story, right, then you are essentially moving it from product backlog to that sprint backlog. Then you can add story points as well. Then this team and all is just logistics. Then you can update the acceptance criteria, the environment and the priority and all of this. Okay. So in this, the key thing is updating story points, adding the description, and then also the acceptance criteria.
So description, we are putting the description for the epic.
No,
or the
for
user story.
For the user story. So first you can if you change this issue type to epic, right, then you create an epic first. Okay, then you create user stories. How do you link a user story to an epic? By updating this field epic link. Here you update that epic number here.
So if we so here it is task, so we will be kind of integrating that task with the user story task to the epic. So we'll put that epic link
So
over
there
here.
is nothing called user story task, Anshuman. So task is just a type of issue. So in this drop down, if you select this drop down, right, you will see task, user story, epic or defect. You will see multiple values. You can select one of them. Are you getting it or confused?
Yeah, it is. It will be having task, user story, and epic, right?
Yeah, epic, or it could be a defect also, bug, or it depends from organization to organization. But yeah, these are the common issue types.
So if we create, okay, so first we have to create, suppose example wise, suppose we have to first create an epic, and then once that epic is done, then if we create a user story, on that basis, we will be kind of putting the created epic link on the epic link
Correct.
part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, correct. So you just
And
update the
then,
epic link here.
and then once we do that, so the related task or the bug that we have, kind of, we can relate it to the epic link again.
Yeah.
Same
So
epic
when
link
you
that we
open
have
the
created.
epic, right? When you open the epic, you will see all the user stories that are linked to that epic. Okay, and so this is where you actually write the acceptance criteria. So it's another box. So where you write it in the Gherkin format. Okay, given when then, and then you save it, and finally, so you can click on create. So you update the story points here. Okay, depending on the type of estimate that you follow. So any questions on what all we did?
This original estimate, so it will be done by the product owner, or how exactly, means the Scrum team or the BA, who exactly will be putting across this
So
original estimate?
so it's a joint effort, right? We discussed the estimation where
The development
we
team.
organize, the development team.
So Ravi,
So development team includes BA, okay? So don't get confused.
So Ravi, but if we talk about the agile world, we don't estimate effort into, I mean,
In
in
mandate.
these mandates, right? So
Yeah,
how
we
we
don't.
convert it?
No, we don't estimate in days here. This is the story point estimate. We
Yeah.
put
So
the
if
story point.
you that's a 3 week, 4 day, 12 hours.
No, this is
So
just example he's giving. So JIRA
okay,
is giving you examples. So we put the story points here.
okay. So we put it story point here only, right?
Yeah, correct. So also the other thing is you can always convert your story points into days, but the objective of that is to decide, do a high level planning on when you can deliver a particular feature. Because what happens is, let's say if you have if your team is delivering 100 story points in the last 20 sprints. Okay, the average of last 20 sprints is 100 story points. What is 100 story points? Is it 100 man days? No, right? So 100 story points is just a random number. So if a
Correct.
team is
Yeah.
able to deliver 100 story points in 10 days, then if a new feature comes to you, right, then you will estimate how many story points will it take. Okay, so let's say after estimating, you decide, okay, the estimate is 200 story points, right? So if your team can deliver 100 story points in 2 weeks, to deliver 200 story points, it's simple maths, right? You will take two sprints, which is 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So indirectly, you can also give a rough estimate on when you can deliver the story after doing the story point estimation. Yeah.
So Ravi, how do we track? So if you talk about project management, how we track it? So we do not have actual man days or hours or efforts that we have similar in the agile, waterfall model. So when it comes to project management in agile, so do we do that in the same version like the mandate, the random estimation? How
Yeah,
does
so
it
that's why
happen?
project managers are converting into Scrum Masters, right? There is no project manager role anymore.
Okay.
There is no project. So it's just constant feedback loops. Every 2 weeks, I'm calling my user and telling, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to do in the next 2 weeks. This is what I've done. And they are clear of when it will be delivered. So you can use story points also, right, to create a rough estimate on when you can deliver.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all project managers
Ravi,
are getting certified in Scrum and moving as Scrum Masters now. Yeah, Push.
yeah, Ravi, I was asking, like when showing about user story, you had told that when we add the acceptance criteria, the Jira would generate test cases. So is it here when you put in and it generates the test case, or
No, okay, so you put in here and then maybe just imagine something like, okay, you see a ready button here, okay, something like that.
okay?
So you don't see it on the screen, but when you add it, right, you see a ready button.
Mm,
So at least two people should click on ready for acceptance criteria to be generating test cases. But this is the box where you type in the Gherkin format, and then you click on that ready, and then it goes and creates. But your organization has to implement a plugin called Behave Pro to make that possible.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, you have to go and create the test cases manually.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of times what happens is in very matured organizations like SocGen and all, right? If you create the acceptance criteria and give to the developer will automate it when he's developing. So you don't need to do any testing. That's why in banks like SocGen, you don't have testers because there is no testing.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how your sprints look like. Okay, so sprint 52, sprint 53. When you assign a user story to a specific sprint, right, it comes into this specific sprint number. And normally we have a view of at least the next 3 sprints. Okay. And the Scrum Master, when he wants to, so this is the active sprint, or which is the ongoing sprint. And after this is done, the Scrum Master will complete that sprint and then start this new sprint. Okay, so not something that you should know, but good to know. And you can do a quick filter. This is how a typical backlog looks like. Okay, so anything that is not part of these sprints is actually part of the backlog, right? Backlog is nothing but just a list of all the epics and stories that you want to deliver. Is it okay if we continue for some more time, maybe another 10-15 minutes, we can complete the JIRA session? If everyone is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm fine.
Okay. So when you click on this active sprints, right, then you will know this is the flow. Okay. So to do is something, okay, that when you started the sprint, everything will be in to do. And when it meets the definition of ready, right? So that means it's ready. And then you pick it up, it'll be in progress. Once you're done, if you want someone else to review, you can move it to in review, and then you move it to done. Okay, so done is just a criteria that you use to define if the story is completed or not. Okay, so once we are done with the sprint and we want to close, right? So you just click on this complete sprint, and then it will end that specific sprint. Okay, component, as I said, right? So for example, audit is a component or bug is a component. The advantage of component or label is when you label story using or map it to a component, right? For example, audit, okay? You want to know what are the different stories that you delivered for the audit team, okay? So then you can simply run a report based on this component and label. That's when it's quite useful. And this is how you configure all the settings. So if your project has Behave Pro, right, this workflow, then it will automatically generate test cases for you. Okay, so this is how a typical user story, once you have added, right, this is how it looks like. So the type is story, the priority you define, then the story points you put in here, the status and all of that. Any questions on the screen? Okay, then you can add labels, and this search for issues is another powerful feature that you can use. Okay, so when you click on that search for issues, right, you can write simple queries like this. So where you can say project equals to your project name, issue type equals to story, and status equals to an assignee equals to, and then you click on this search button, right, this binocular here. It will give you a list of all the stories based on this query. Okay, so that's how you can generate reports out of JIRA. Okay, so this create sprint is more for Scrum Masters. The reports also you don't need to know for Scrum Masters. I think, yeah, so that's all on JIRA. Any questions, anything specific that you want to know here?
So Ravi, whatever we have seen is all created by a BA, right? The user
Yeah,
story and
yeah,
then
correct. So this
this
is what
all.
you, yeah. So
So
what you
this
need
is
to
all
know is
like
how to create epic stories and all these. You need to get familiarized with these all terminologies. That's all.
And who all have access to this? Like who all can edit it or modify it?
Ah, that's a good question. So Scrum Master will be the admin of the board, and a BA will be given the title of a developer. Okay, so BA developer can be should be able to edit, whereas a QA or a tester will have read-only access, or he can only execute the test cases which are auto-generated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were asking something.
Yeah, so it was like the backlog option. All those backlogs of the particular project, uh, who will be creating it? The B?
Okay, backlog product owner.
Because yeah,
Product
what
owner.
I understand is, yeah, so it's like product owner, right? Because from there we will be creating kind of taking, suppose we have 10 backlogs, kind of we will be putting it across to different sprints on the basis of 3-4 sprint yeah, user stories per sprint basis. So that will be created by the product owner, right?
No, so the product backlog is owned by the product owner. Sprint backlog is owned by the development team. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you pick up a story from a product backlog and add this sprint, right? You see this field sprint, you add the sprint number there. That means you are moving it from product backlog to that sprint backlog. So when you move that, right, here, if you pick up a story from backlog and you add sprint 52, it will start coming up here. If you pick up a story from backlog and you move it to sprint, add sprint 54, it will show up here. So who will add to this sprint number? Development team will add. Okay. Product owner cannot add because the development team knows what is their capacity, right? And what they can deliver.
Okay, so in that case, the suppose here the example like if you take it 50, 52, 53, 54. So all these related sprints, ongoing and the future sprints must be created so that we take out the related kind of user story from the backlog and select that particular 52 or 53. Then it will show in the related kind of a sprint.
Yeah. So your Scrum Master will do that. You don't need to do that.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I was asking, like, so basically, whatever access the developer has, so the BA will have the same access?
Yeah. So BA is a developer actually in Scrum.
Yeah. So both will have same access, like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Davi, related to this report that you showed, what exactly is this report related for? What?
Okay. So for example, I'm just giving you a very layman example. Let's say you worked for the whole year, and then you want to write in your appraisal, in your self appraisal, what are the different stories that you worked on? How will you know? So you can come here and just write, okay, project equals to, and then assignee equals to Anshuman, and then click on search. It will give you a list of all the projects that you worked on, all the stories you were, where you were the assignee. Okay, or you can just put a label Anshuman and add that label so that you know end of the day that you have done this. So that's a simple example that I've given, but normally we use it to at least in our project, we use it to identify. So we have these labels like regulatory or resiliency, and then business driven, new opportunities and all of that. So end of the year, we run a report to see how much effort, how many story points did we invest on what. Okay, so did we invest more on regulatory stories, or did we invest more on business driven? So it will give like meaningful insights. So when you want to run reports, right, on a huge volume of stories, you can do it easily here. The other thing is, let's say if you want to know what were the stories you delivered in the last in the sprint that you did in December last year. Okay, so if you have the sprint number, you can just say sprint number equals to this one. It will give you a list of all the stories.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so if there are no more questions, then perhaps we are good. Perhaps we are good. Okay. So any more questions, right? If you start when you start attending interviews, you have any questions, just message them in the group, or feel free to give me a call. We can go through that and I can help you with that. So as and when you progress. So the next thing is I'll set up meetings with each of you from tomorrow, where we'll go through your CVs and prepare your CVs so that you can start applying for jobs. But people who have not gone through the recordings, right? Make sure you go through the recordings like 2 or 3 times. So if you see the way Venkatesh has answered the question at the beginning, right? So that's how we need to answer. I'm sure if you answer that way, right, it's pretty easy to get selected. Okay, so Monica, who's on the call, so she has also gone through the recordings quite a lot, and so she has cleared the Deloitte interview. So she's also got opportunities with Wipro and all these companies. So if you go through the recordings and then start preparing, right, it will help you speed up the process.
Maybe tomorrow, what session we have?
From tomorrow, I'll start the CV review, Mavisha. So I'll set up like sessions with each of you. It will be 1-to-1. It's not a group session.
Ravi, for 10 minutes, can you take a look on the SQL? You told that you'll take up on.
Yeah, SQL I'll do. I'm just setting up database, but I remember, so I'll call you guys for the SQL session. Yeah, I
Sure, no
remember that.
problem.
Ravi, I think we needed the dashboard that you have been always showing us, because the interview questions are listed there.
Did I not give you guys access to that Blackboard?
I mean, it's not there on the drive. And
no, it's a separate link where I gave you guys the access. It's already there.
so
Okay, I
I've
think.
just checked. So I just thought I'll ask. I'm not sure, because
Okay,
you can just prepare the interview questions from there.
yeah. So this Blackboard, right? Everyone has read.
Yes.
So you can refer to that, anytime. Because I'll be updating this on a regular basis, so you can use that as a reference for real time.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyone who doesn't have access, just let me know. I can add your Gmail to that. I think most of them on the call has access. Okay, so if there are no further questions, I will keep talking on the CV preparation. And Maninder, I'll let you know for the next batch, and then call you into the next batch for the missed sessions. Can you ping me what sessions you missed so that I can add you?
Sure, will do.
Ravi, even
Also, the
I
other
miss.
thing
Yes?
is, Mavisha. So let me know which sessions you missed. The other thing is, so I'm planning to do a capital markets overview and trade life cycle overview So if anyone of you is interested, right, feel free to join those sessions. Just message me. If you're interested, I can invite you to that session. It's not mandatory for everyone. If you like to get into capital markets or investment banking, right, maybe it would interest you. Otherwise, if you're not interested, that's fine. So it's optional. You don't need to know that for BA interviews.
Yeah, Ravi, I'm interested. Please include me. Vijay.
Yeah. Okay, fine then. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi.
Yeah. Bye. Monica, you were asking something? Ritika, are you there?